Events make this Naruto game unplayable, and the events I'm talking about are the ones in Naruto Storm Connections in 2024 online battles where there's crystals involved and teams, and you have to pick a side. Like, do you pick Jiraiya as the best teacher or Minato as the best teacher? Do you pick Team Rasengan or do you pick Team Chidori? These types of events, right? Something that they did by initiating these events broke the game online and made it way worse and more unstable online. They made your fights way more laggy, and they made it so that you have less frames to work with. What am I talking about? Frames per second, FPS. You're either playing as 30 FPS, which is the standard, right, on older consoles, and now it's like 60 frames per second are the new standard, and this game can be played in 60 frames per second. So it doesn't really matter if it's 60 or 30 that much. It does a bit. But what you basically do is to, if you're at 60 frames per second, you just divide that number in two. So if I'm playing on 30 frames per second because I like the controller better. I like the PlayStation 4 controller more than the PlayStation 5 controller. I find it too clunky. And I don't know. It's possible. It's not just that, because I have a lot of friends that play in 60 frames per second and they have the same issues, right? So a lot of times, like for instance, this day in 2024, like mid 2024 to early 2024, when these events started happening, what ended up happening is that basically if you go to move your character, you're seeing something on your screen, but they're already moving somewhere else. So you're actually not seeing accurately where they are on the screen, right? So you're reacting to something that's already in the past, if that makes sense, or the future, vice versa, depending on who you are and what player you are. If both characters have the same like experience, right? Even if it is a loss of frame rate data, even if it is kind of laggy, as long as it's the exact same experience for both of you, you can actually play that game, but it's a very basic game that way because you're missing certain frames. Certain moves will work, certain moves won't work. It won't be like playing offline at all. It'll just be like a different experience. That's one thing, but a lot of times it doesn't do that. It picks favorites and it does a teeter-totter type of thing where sometimes you will lag and other times the other person will lag more. So in this game, actually it's very interesting. In this particular, the first game against this person, I have two fights against this person. I actually had the slightly better connection. He was actually lagging more than me, which is crazy. Usually it feels like the other way to me, but I know for a fact that it does take turns. It depends on your location. It depends on, I don't really know exactly the ins and outs of net code or the coding of the online experience, but from experience I can tell you that in Storm games at least, it takes turns, which is crazy. Also, Demon Slayer and these types of Bandai Namco games. And I think a big reason for that is because in Japan, they have amazing internet, better internet than us here in North America, so I've been told. So it doesn't really bother them because I think the netcode is built over there for the Japanese market, and they just keep the netcode, it would seem, for us. Or maybe they make us a specific netcode, but they're just not good at doing it, and they're just reusing the same online netcode from Storm 2, which is 13 or 14 years old, which was built for the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox, I guess, 360, right? This is kind of the issue, is we kind of have this Stone Age netcode, and this is what's kind of happening. So you can see it's very choppy, but it's like the main issue is we can't really have a fight because a lot of fighting is reacting to somebody else. Now, I did a voiceover on this video because I don't want to go through the pain of hearing my voice saying how bad this game is. I call it trash. I call it a stupid game. And a lot of times I need this type of video to remind me not to play the game during the event and to basically play this game in strides, right? Like I can only play this game in small increments, and it's best to play this game with a friend or sparring partner online in custom battles because you both know each other, you're both on the mic, and you can both communicate. I always, like, whenever I play someone in customs, I always ask them, hey, was that laggy? Always, most of the time, because I don't want them to feel the way that I feel when I play this game when I'm lagging, and I even if I win or lose, it doesn't really matter because in these two games, like in the first round, I won, but it's still so bad that I don't want to play the game even if I win when it's like this. But a lot of times I lose. A lot of times my losses come from this. I don't actually have a lot of losses in this game or in Storm 4, but when I do, this game more so is like I lose even less in this game because this game is more about just kind of doing the right things at the right time, and then once you have that locked in, it's like a combo route or it's like a fighting process. It's kind of weird because it's not so much like a fighting game where anything can happen at any time. This game is more like, okay, once you do certain things, you that's what it is, and then you win. I know that's kind of weird, but it is what it is. But in Storm 4, you can't do that as much because of the chakra recovery glitch and the Jitsu spam. It's very interesting. And the lack of punishment for getting free automatic things. I still like Storm 4. I still have a lot of Storm 4 gameplay to show you. But a lot of times this game is better because you cannot wiggle your way out of certain things. You cannot escape certain things. You cannot run as much as you can in Storm 4. You cannot spam as much as you can in Storm 4, even though the chakra regens. It regens for both players, you know. It doesn't rely on an input where in Storm 4, if you do the chakra recovery glitch and you do the jitsu buffer, right? It's not a jitsu buffer, right? You're just buffering your inputs to get that jitsu and chakra recovery glitch, which is a misconception in the community, which is fine. I don't know if they'll ever change their wording on that, but that is the difference, right? And that's what it is, but it's fine. In this whole fight, if you've been watching closely, like it's just a lot of blocking and then a lot of very focused inputs because things don't even connect, you know? Like even that, like that's so weird. Normally Pain would have like moved around and grabbed me, but somehow it just didn't work out. So it's just a very, very horrible feeling playing when it's like this. So I personally do not play during events, and I would recommend anyone not to because you'll end up, you know, putting the game down for good or just hating the game or not understanding what's happening. And that's why I talk about this frequently is a lot of people don't even realize they just play the game and they're not even aware somehow because they're so immersed into the games. They're not aware that these things are happening. They're not aware that there's frame rate drop. They're not aware that your characters are not ported into the game properly or your opponents aren't. And you get these wins and you think that they're yours, but really they're fake. Some of them are real for sure, 100%. And like I'm basically playing at a 5 out of 10, which is 15 FPS out of 30. So I'm missing 15 frames, half of my frames. But then he in the first round, first fights, probably had a 4 out of 10, right? Whatever the math is on that, but it's less than 15 frames, but more than 10, right? But you know, I've had fights this particular day where I basically have 1/3 of my frames, so like basically 10 out of 30 frames, and then my opponent has like 20 out of 30 frames. And of course, if they have those extra 10 frames, or 33% more frames, I have 33%, they have 66. Of course, I'm not going to be able to beat them. A lot of those games are close, and I sometimes end up beating those players, but it is very difficult. So here's some examples of people that I fought earlier that day, the same day, right? The fights were before the Massman fights. I played Hinata and this fan Madara, and I just really couldn't get anything done. And there I'm throwing things on the ground, which is usually a sign of lag. I'm whiffing air combos later on, you'll see. And it's just me being used as a punching bag, not being able to fight back. And it's really interesting because I know 99% of the time when people, well, that's probably not true. At least 90% of the time when people fight me and then this happens, they just think that they're winning. They don't realize that I can't even react or move. And on the few times I've told people earlier on in this game, in the first 3 to 4 months of the game, that's why I stopped telling people. Like, look, I just literally just lost instantly, right? Is they tell me that I should show the fight and it's that I'm lying, right? Like, they basically just think I'm not good at the game, which is crazy, which I get it. It's like the ego trying to protect itself. But this is interesting because the other guy I didn't know about, this Damu Rich, is actually on my friends list. And he's interesting because I told him about it and he actually completely believed me. If you look here, it's like a almost perfect, like 75% health lead green bar. And this is actually the first time this player has ever beat me, I think. I beat him like something like 6 to 10 times before this, and I've showed the videos in the past. Like, he's on my rank ladder, I fought him, and So it's kind of crazy, right? From never being able to beat me to almost perfecting me. And this happens here with this Tempt the Hooligan again, with basically a 75-80% green bar. And it's just me not even being able to, all I can do is block, if that, and instant guard breaks happening and stuff like that. It's just really crazy, man. So all those fights here are fake fights. And this is just part of the reason why it just hurts my soul to play this game sometimes. And a lot of people quit. This is one of the number one reasons why people quit. Like, it's not that I'm bad at the game. I just literally, the game won't let you play it. The game is just unstable online. It's really, really tough. I love the game when it works properly, and I love that feeling of having those games, but those games are very, very few. They're very uncommon and they're very rare. It's about 20% of the time that you get a good fight, and it's about 80% of the time that you get a fight like this. Now, this is the worst of it. You know, you can manage it, but it's still not competitive and it's not fun to play. I wish it wasn't the case. I wish I could just say nothing but good things about this game, but it's very, very difficult, man.